Are you ready to change your life? Do you feel the urge to start over from a new place that feels lighter, clearer, and truly your own? If so, you are not alone. It's okay if you don't yet know where you're heading. It's okay if you don't have a detailed roadmap for the journey ahead. What matters most is this: you've awakened. Each of us, in our own way, is on a journey to become the best version of ourselves. But that journey doesn't have to be lonely, vague, or random. The ancient Stoic philosophers Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus weathered the fiercest storms of fate, and they left behind simple yet profound principles. To master life, you must first learn to master your mind. In this video, I'm going to share with you 10 Stoic morning practices to strengthen your mindset, cut through distractions, and start your day with calm, clarity, and purpose. These are small but powerful steps that can gradually create lasting change in your life. Watch until the end and don't miss a single practice. If you're ready to make a change, leave a comment. I'm ready, and let's begin. Practice number 1. Determine what is within your control and what is not. Have you ever felt completely drained just because a bad day started with a traffic jam? Have you ever heard a harsh comment from someone only to end the day consumed by worries about rising prices? I've been there too, constantly overwhelmed by a sense of helplessness over things I simply couldn't control. But then I began learning from the Stoics, and they showed me a simple yet revolutionary way out. Clearly distinguish between what we can control and what we cannot. The Stoics believed that one of the root causes of human suffering is the harmful confusion between these two categories. We try to bend the outside world to our will, from the weather, traffic, and economy to other people's opinions, forgetting that all of these lie beyond our reach. And when we base our happiness on such unpredictable variables, we're essentially sentencing ourselves to a life of anxiety, frustration, and anger. The only thing you and I truly have control over is our own minds. It's the attitude we choose when we're misunderstood. It's the decision we make when things don't go as planned. It's how we respond when we face adversity. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of Rome, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That quote isn't just a compass, it's a wake-up call. Real strength begins with a calm and conscious mind, not with favorable circumstances. I started practicing this every morning, spending a few quiet minutes visualizing the day ahead, asking myself, what might happen today that is beyond my control, and how will I respond so I'm not swept away by it? This is a form of premeditatio malorum, the anticipation of misfortune, a classic Stoic habit. When you train this mindset regularly, something strange happens. You become calmer, more decisive, and less easily distracted. The things that once triggered your anger, judgmental comments, delays, and disruptions, now feel like mere gusts of wind, unable to shake a mind forged in discipline. Identifying what lies within your control is not surrender. On the contrary, it is a declaration of personal freedom. Because when you are no longer at the mercy of a rapidly changing world, you finally begin to take command of your life, thought by thought, action by action, choice by choice. And when you live by this principle, each day becomes a quiet transformation, not loud, not dramatic, but deep and lasting. You're no longer a puppet of your circumstances, but the one holding the wheel from within. The change doesn't start with the world, it starts with your thinking. And when your thinking changes, your whole life begins to change with it. Practice number 2. Determine your purpose for the day. You open your eyes in the morning, thinking you have a whole day ahead of you. But just a few minutes scrolling through your phone, a couple of unnecessary conversations, and a stream of notifications lighting up your screen, and suddenly you've lost yourself without even realizing it. What's been stolen isn't just time, but your energy, your direction, your focus. If you don't actively set your intention, the world will do it for you. And when that happens, other people's needs, expectations, and distractions will take the wheel. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you don't have a consistent goal in life, you can't live it in a consistent way." This quote acts like a cold mirror reflecting the truth. Lacking purpose doesn't just make you drift. It makes every action feel scattered and meaningless. Your purpose doesn't need to be grand from the start. It just needs to be clear enough that you know you're living a day worth living, not just existing. In Stoic philosophy, each day is a chance to train your will, to move toward your ideals, and to resist being swept away by trivial, nameless distractions. Stephen Hawking wasn't just a scientist, he was living proof of the power of purpose. Diagnosed with ALS at the age of 21 and given only a few years to live, most people would have given up. But Hawking didn't choose surrender. Instead, he asked himself, if I still have time, what is the most meaningful way I can use it? His answer, to think, to research, and to explore the mysteries of the universe. Even as his body became immobile, his mind stretched to the edges of time and space. Hawking didn't let illness define him. It was his purpose each day that defined him. To him, a meaningful day was a day where thinking never stopped. A Brief History of Time became a global bestseller, inspiring millions. He once said, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at." This wasn't empty optimism, it was a resilient life philosophy, purpose-driven, one day at a time. What you do today doesn't need to change the world. But ask yourself one question. What is the one thing that would make today worthwhile? Maybe it's finishing a paragraph, showing up fully in a workout, or having a meaningful conversation with someone you love. What matters isn't the size of what you do, it's that you know why you're doing it. A clear purpose turns every action into a conscious step. It's like holding the steering wheel instead of sitting in the back seat of a journey with no destination. It gives you a reason to reject distractions, to say no to things that feel urgent but aren't truly important. And every time you live a day aligned with that purpose, you're proving to yourself that you can take charge of your life, one day at a time. Practice number 3. Begin with intentional discomfort. Have you ever noticed how your brain will do anything to avoid discomfort? You'll scroll on TikTok for an hour just to dodge writing an awkward email, or suddenly feel the urge to reorganize your sock drawer instead of having a tough conversation. It's completely normal, but also a problem, because if avoiding discomfort becomes your default response, you're training yourself to retreat from life every time it asks for a little courage, and no meaningful change ever comes from a mind that constantly runs from discomfort. In Stoicism, the opposite is the path to inner freedom, actively seeking discomfort, but doing it with purpose. Seneca called it voluntary hardship. He once advised, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" That very question, "Is this really what I was so afraid of?" is a key. Most of our fears don't come from reality, but from our imagination. And the way to strip away the illusion is to step into the situation willingly. Think about the journey of Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist, Holocaust survivor, and prisoner of Auschwitz. He lost his family, his status, his future, and was stripped of every human comfort. Yet in that depth of suffering, he discovered something unexpected. It's not the circumstance that defines who you are, but how you respond to it. He wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." That sentence wasn't just philosophy, it was the truth that kept him alive in the midst of hell. From utter deprivation, he forged an unbreakable will. Comfort numbs the spirit over time. When everything is easy, we grow weak, not physically, but mentally, quick to anger, quick to give up, easily distracted, afraid to fail. The Stoics chose a different path. They took cold showers, wore thin clothes in winter, fasted and slept on the ground. Not because they were masochists, but because they understood something. Comfort is a silent thief of willpower. Every small act of endurance is an arrow aimed at the fragile self that wants to run. You can start small, spend a day eating very simply. Turn off the AC in the morning. Walk instead of driving. Any minor inconvenience, if you choose it consciously, builds a stronger mental foundation. Because when you've learned to handle the little discomforts, you won't collapse when real life tests you. That's the power of intentional discomfort. And once you've trained that mental muscle, you'll be more prepared for the next Stoic principle, envisioning the worst-case scenario. Sound pessimistic? It's not, because in imagining disaster, you discover a kind of peace that cannot be shaken. Are you ready to try? Practice number 4. Visualize the worst. Premeditatio malorum. Have you ever felt stressed over something that hasn't even happened yet? Maybe it's an important meeting, a possible rejection in love, or simply a late morning that puts you in a heavy mood for the rest of the day. We worry, we imagine the worst-case scenarios, and we let that fear take over our minds. But what if, instead of passively stewing in anxiety, you actively envisioned the worst and prepared for it? That's one of the core practices of Stoic philosophy, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. The philosopher Seneca once said, "This is why we say that nothing happens to the wise person contrary to their expectations." The wise aren't immune to risk, they simply anticipate it. Instead of being knocked down by adversity, they recover faster because their minds are already one step ahead of reality. Picture an athlete preparing for the Olympics. He doesn't just visualize winning a medal, he also trains for the worst. A minor injury, a bad start, losing focus from the noise. Not because he's negative, but because he's serious about his goal. He doesn't want fear to take control. He wants to turn fear into a plan. In the same way, premeditatio malorum isn't about being pessimistic. It's about living strategically. I once applied this when I was preparing to quit a job I'd been at for many years. I wrote down everything that might happen: unstable finances, feeling lost, fear of being judged. But I also wrote down how I'd respond, cut back on spending, rebuild my routine, talk to loved ones to process my emotions. What surprised me was this: once I dared to face the worst head-on, it stopped haunting me. I felt more confident, and in the end, most of the things I feared never happened. We often think peace comes when everything goes smoothly, But the Stoics believed peace comes from inner preparation, because life is uncertain, and the only thing we truly control is our own response. When you envision the worst, you're not calling it into existence. You're stripping it of its power. You're telling yourself, if that happens, I'll be ready. And in that moment, fear becomes agency. Uncertainty becomes strategy. Your mind is no longer dominated by dark what-ifs. It's equipped to face reality. You're no longer a victim of circumstances. You become the master of yourself. So the only question left is, will you keep worrying aimlessly, or will you dare to imagine the worst to stand stronger in the face of it? Let me know your answer in the comments below. Practice number 5. Remember death. Memento mori. Have you ever sat in silence and suddenly realized your time is slipping away and you'll never get it back? We often live as if we're immortal, postponing words of love, abandoning our dreams, spending 15 more minutes scrolling as if those minutes meant nothing. But Marcus Aurelius hit us with an undeniable truth. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. You could leave this life right now. Let that guide your actions, your words, your thoughts. When we dare to face death, something strange happens. We live more urgently, more gratefully, not in panic, but in presence. Someone who knows that each morning could be their last won't let anger take the wheel. They won't pass by the eyes of a loved one without stopping for a few seconds to say, "Thank you for being here." I have a friend who lost his father in a sudden accident. After the shock, he decided to write one short journal line every day. "If today were my last, I would..." That question didn't make him depressed. On the contrary, it helped him cut off toxic relationships, stop complaining, and start learning photography, something he had put off for 8 years just because the timing wasn't right. Practicing memento mori isn't about fear. It's about letting go of the illusion of immortality. It reminds us life isn't long, and that's exactly what makes it precious. One day, our names will disappear from others' contact lists. All that's left will be a few stories. So the only thing we can control is how we live in a way worth remembering. You don't need to hang a skull on the wall to remember death. Just ask, if today were my last, am I living true to myself? If the answer is no, then you already know what you need to do. If you're still watching or reading this, I want to thank you. You've made it halfway through the journey, and that says a lot about you. That you don't just listen, you reflect, and you're genuinely trying to change. We've gone through 5 Stoic practices together, and 5 more are waiting ahead. Each one is a key, and when combined, they open a door, a place where you no longer react impulsively, no longer get swept away by the world around you, but live with clarity and strength from within. And the next practice may be one of the most important in today's world, where everything demands an instant reaction. But must we always respond immediately? Or is it possible that sometimes stepping back for a moment is actually the greatest step forward? Keep going until the end, because what's coming might just be exactly what you need. Practice number 6. Don't react immediately. Do you remember Will Smith at the 2022 Oscars? Of course you do. That slap went down in history, not just because of the shock it caused, but because it showed us something clear. One impulsive second can overshadow a career built over decades. And this doesn't just happen to celebrities. It happens to you, to me, every day. when we let emotions dictate our actions before we've had time to think. Stoicism has a simple principle that can transform how we live. Don't react immediately. It sounds small, but in that pause between stimulus and response is where true freedom begins. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." We can't control what others say or do, but we always have the power to choose how we respond. So why do we react so quickly? Because our ego feels attacked, because our survival instincts push us to strike back. But if you always act on reflex, you're just a victim of circumstance, not the master of it. And where there's no self-control, there's no strength. Stoics don't deny emotions. They just don't let emotions take the driver's seat. When insulted, they don't retaliate, not because they're weak, but because they understand this. Impulsive reactions are the first trap that leads to regret. One word spoken in anger can destroy a relationship. One decision made in a shaken state of mind can derail an entire life. Instead, they practice one thing: pause. Just breathe in, hold it, and count to 3. Maybe write a few lines in a journal. Maybe take a few slow laps around the room. They create space. And in that space, reason speaks. You don't have to respond to everything right away. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every emotion needs to be acted on. Self-control doesn't come from suppression. It comes from understanding that emotions are temporary, but consequences are lasting. Every time you delay a knee-jerk reaction, you are building inner strength. You are choosing freedom. You are living like a Stoic, responding with reason instead of instinct. See, Will Smith isn't the only one who's ever had a moment of wrong reaction. But if you can learn to pause, even for just a few seconds, you rise above millions who are still slaves to their emotions. And if you practice this every day, you won't just change your behavior, you'll change the way you exist in this world. Practice number 7. Reduce your need for validation. Have you ever felt lost simply because no one acknowledged your effort? Have you ever done the right thing only to hesitate afterward because there was no applause? If your answer is yes, then you're not alone. We live in an age where a single like on social media can dictate our mood for the entire day. But Stoic philosophy reminds us of the opposite truth, that true freedom begins when you no longer live for the gaze of others. Seneca once wrote, "Do not seek for admiration, it is always fleeting." That's not just advice, it's a warning. When you act only to be praised, you are no longer yourself. You become a mirror reflecting others' expectations, bending with every raised eyebrow or round of applause. And each time you do that, you trade away a piece of your inner freedom. External validation, though it may seem harmless, is in fact a sweet trap. At first, it feels like a reward, but gradually it becomes a condition. You only feel worthy when others say you are. And in doing so, you've handed the keys to your emotions to someone else. Stoicism teaches us to do the opposite. Instead of chasing compliments, act on principle. When you know exactly why you're doing something because it's right, because it reflects the values you hold, then you don't need a pat on the back. You do the right thing not for recognition, but because not doing it would mean betraying who you are. I know it's not easy to let go of the need for approval. We are social creatures. We all want to be heard, to be appreciated. But there's a big difference between wanting to be understood and needing to be validated in order to feel complete. Stoics don't deny human emotions, but they teach us inner discipline. Emotions may arise, but don't let them govern the way you live. Take a moment to observe your day. How many of your actions are truly for yourself, and how many are so that someone else will think well of you? How many of your decisions are honest reflections of who you are, and how many are just attempts to please the crowd? When you start to notice that, you're taking a step closer to the kind of freedom Marcus Aurelius called living in harmony with your own reason. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Because the person who lives true to themselves, even if misunderstood, even if uncelebrated, holds a peace that no one can take away. That is the priceless gift of Stoic practice, a calm that comes from within. And once you start living without dependence on praise, you create space in your mind to truly observe yourself. This is where a powerful Stoic tool comes in: journaling. The next practice isn't just a habit, it's a doorway into deep, honest, and non-judgmental conversations with yourself. Don't miss it, because it just might change the way you see your entire life. Practice number 8. Keep a Stoic journal. Our minds are not naturally steady. Every day they're pulled in every direction by emotions, worries, expectations, and trivial distractions. Amid that chaos, staying clear-headed or, as the Stoics put it, mastering your reason is no simple task. That's why Stoic journaling is more than just a habit. It's a ritual, a practice of recovery and mental clarity. Writing, seemingly a mundane act, is actually a powerful tool that helps you see yourself more clearly, think more rationally, and stay anchored to the values you choose to live by. When Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations, he never intended for anyone else to read it. It wasn't a philosophical manifesto or a personal memoir. It was a series of notes, honest, tangled, often repetitive, written so that an emperor could remind himself of what truly mattered: integrity, patience, acceptance of death, gratitude for simple things. The same goes for you. When you write down what you're thinking and feeling, you're holding your mind up to the light of reason. You begin to notice what's pulling your strings. Is it fear, anger, or unnecessary desire? You start to tell the difference between what you feel and what you know is right. And that distinction is the root of real change. In a world moving so fast that you often don't even know what's happening to you, journaling is an act of brave slowing down. It's like pulling yourself out of the current, climbing onto the shore, and looking back to ask, what current was I just swimming in? Through writing, you ask yourself, what values am I living by? Am I reacting or choosing? Is this emotion reasonable? Is this anger worth holding on to? These questions asked over and over don't make you weak. They make you clear and strong. A Stoic journal is not about painting a perfect picture of yourself. On the contrary, it's a mirror that reflects the less pleasant parts: laziness, selfishness, doubt, so you can truly change them. This is premeditatio malorum in its deepest sense, mentally preparing for hardship by first facing yourself honestly. And no real transformation can happen without that confrontation. You don't need to write beautifully, you just need to write truthfully. Every line you write is a small step toward a more rational, grounded, and free version of yourself. So if you're looking for a tool to fundamentally change your life, don't look any further. Open a blank page and ask yourself, did I live with reason today? If you've ever tried journaling even just once, share your thoughts below. And if you've never tried, start tonight. Just one page, and let me know how it feels. Practice number 9. Begin with gratitude. Have you ever opened your eyes in the morning and immediately felt a sense of emptiness? Not enough time, not enough money, not enough motivation, as if something is always missing in life. We often begin our days with a sigh, a mindless scroll through our phones, or a stream of complaints in our heads about work, people, or even ourselves. But does any of that help? The philosopher Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. It's not the one with the least who is truly poor, but the one who always wants more." This bottomless hunger for more blinds us to what we already have. And from there, our minds become trapped in a loop of lack, dissatisfaction, and envy. Wanting more and more doesn't make us stronger. It only makes us feel weaker each day. Stoicism doesn't oppose growth, but it understands this: contentment is the root of inner freedom. When you practice gratitude, you shift your perspective from scarcity to abundance, from craving to appreciation. It's a quiet but powerful transformation, like adjusting the lens of a camera. Suddenly, the world becomes clearer and closer. Think of Nick Vujicic, a man born without arms and legs, yet always wearing an inspiring smile. He doesn't start his day with questions like, "Why am I like this?" or "Life is so unfair." Instead, he chooses gratitude. Grateful for being alive, for the chance to bring value to others, for being loved and able to inspire. Starting from that place, his life isn't defined by his body, but uplifted by his spirit. He is a living example of the Stoic mindset. You may not control your circumstances, but you can always control your response. And the most important truth is this: gratitude is not a passive feeling, it is an active choice. You have to train it. Every morning, when you open your eyes, instead of instantly complaining about the rain, about going to work, about life not being how you want, pause for 30 seconds. Close your eyes and think of 3 things you have right now: a place to sleep, someone you love, or simply a deep breath. Sounds trivial, but those small things are the foundation you can rebuild your entire mindset on. And if you think this is easier said than done, try this one simple but powerful act. For the first hour after you wake up, don't complain about anything. Just 1 hour. No complaints about work, the weather, yourself, or anyone else. You'll be surprised how different your entire day feels. Your emotions feel lighter, your mind more at ease, and everything seems easier to handle. Practicing gratitude doesn't change the world. It changes the way you see the world, and that is the first step to completely changing yourself. Practice number 10. Don't complain in the first hour after waking. Have you ever noticed how you start your morning often sets the tone for your entire day? You open your eyes and immediately your mind stirs with a string of complaints. Another day. Ugh, time for work. Why am I so tired? Seemingly harmless phrases that actually act like anchors, dragging your emotions down from the very first moment. We're not defeated by events themselves, but by the way we think about them. And there's no time more vulnerable to the spiral of negative thoughts than the early morning, when logic is still waking up and emotions are still hazy, easily influenced. That's why practice number 10 isn't just a mood booster. It's a willpower workout, a declaration, I am in charge of today. Because if you can control your very first reactions, you're laying the foundation for everything that follows. Not complaining doesn't mean pretending everything is great. It means consciously pausing, refusing to let negative language fuel a negative mood. It's choosing silence over complaint and replacing it with deliberate action. Making a cup of tea, taking a deep breath, writing one line of gratitude in your journal. You're doing something profoundly stoic, turning fear into preparation, uncertainty into habit. I get it. Life can be heavy. The alarm hasn't even stopped ringing, and already the emails are piling up, the deadlines lurking like predators. But that's exactly why choosing not to react with negativity is real power. No one but you can steer the direction of your thoughts, and the morning is when your hand is on the wheel. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I am rising to do the work of a human being.'" It's a reminder, we're not here to dodge hardship or escape responsibility, but to face life with dignity and determination. And not complaining, even for just 1 hour in the morning, is the first step on that path. You don't have to change your whole life overnight. You just need to change the first moment after you open your eyes. 1 hour without complaining, 1 hour of self-mastery, of inner stillness. It's not small. It's a quiet but powerful declaration. You are the driver, not the passenger. And if you can do it today, you can do it tomorrow, and the day after that. Are you ready to start tomorrow without a single complaint? If yes, hit follow, because the journey to rewiring your mind and your life is just beginning. You've just completed 10 Stoic practice steps, from shifting your mindset, accepting loss, to training through concrete actions. Each step is a reminder. You can't control the world, but you can always control yourself. From memento mori to premeditatio malorum, Stoic philosophy isn't dry theory. It's a toolkit to help you live with more clarity, strength, and self-mastery every single day. So, which step makes you want to take action today? Which one do you feel most stuck on? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one and will respond. If this video was helpful, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next Stoic content. New videos are waiting for you at the end of the screen. See you there.